Great morning. I'm back already. I got in and out before it was even time for my appointment, so that was pretty quick. Anyway, I was asked to speak on ego death. Okay, so that's what I'll do. The ego death is when one is on a spiritual path, and just before realization, one goes through the ego death. Now, to get to the ego death, one usually has to go through the dark night of the soul. And I am telling you, the dark night of the soul is no joke. During that, I felt the weight of the world and literally could not take a breath. It was so painful. So you ask for that to be taken away. If it's taken away, then you feel nothing. Okay, so that's worse than feeling the pain. Um, so when you're going through the dark night of the soul, just sometimes you have to be just waiting for the next breath, for the next second. You're literally, during that time, I was praying for death. It is so difficult to pass through that and to challenge these things, to look at it, okay? And go through, like I said, not only my own pain, but sometimes you feel the weight of the world, the pain of the world. And it's excruciating, okay? You feel like you've been nailed to the cross, it's just beyond. But you pass through that point, okay? And like I said, for here, when the day of the ego death comes, and I have people on the path and they go, oh, I could face that. It's no big thing. I really want to get there, and then start getting close to it. And the further one goes, the more difficult the path becomes. People think if I get on it, it's going to get easier. The further I go, okay, the easier it's going to get. No. The more difficult lessons come in, the further one goes, okay? So the last challenge is the ego death. And it feels like a genuine death. And I tell people this, and I have them come back, oh yeah, not a problem, and then they start, just tasting the very beginning of it. No, but I'm really gonna die. I said, what did I tell you? But I don't think you really meant it. No, if I tell you this, I mean it. And you tell people it's like going through real death. And they're very glib about it, not a problem. And then they start getting to the difficult times, and they haven't even remotely come close to that ego, the genuine ego death, and they're freaking out at that point. But during the time, when it comes due for the ego death, the only way I can describe what happens is just before that, you sit down for meditation. Usually I'm doing open eye meditation. I'm not doing so much closed eye meditation and that type. But you sit down, and then all of a sudden, there's no world. Your five senses have stopped. Okay? You're not seeing with your physical eyes. You're not hearing with your physical ears. Okay? Your five senses are out the window. And all of a sudden, you're in this dark space. Pitch black. You cannot see anything in front of your face. Okay? And I akin it to being at the Grand Canyon on an absolute pitch black night. You know the drop off is right in front of you and you're compelled to go forward. Okay? It's terrifying. Okay? It can be terrifying because at that point, in my journey, when it got to that point, I knew I had done everything I could do on the spiritual path. There was no more that I had to give. I just, I had done everything I could do, and I knew at that point, you're terrified. You think I'm going to cease to exist completely, or maybe I'm going to, become possessed. But it's terror. You don't know what's coming, and you have to do it on faith. Okay? You have to lay down your life by yourself, and that's what Christ was showing when he went to the cross. He came and he laid it down by his own. Okay? He faced that death. And like he said in the Garden of Gethsemane, he was sweating blood. It's terrorizing. It's terrorizing to face that death. Okay? Terrorizing. So, at that point, there was the choice to be made. There was a choice to be made, and most people will pull back. They'll run, okay? They'll run. But you have to lay down your ego by yourself. You have to sacrifice it yourself. And at that point, I knew I had a split decision to make. And it happens just like it's so quick, It's not where you're sitting there rational thought about it, okay? It's just not like you got that time where you're, rationalizing these things, okay? So I said at that time, on the altar of truth I lay myself. That's what came spontaneously. On the altar of truth I lay myself. And it's up to God, what happens. I'm totally surrendered. There's nothing I can do at this point to save myself to do anything. So it's absolute 100% total surrender that has to take place. Okay? And the moment that surrender was in place, all of a sudden, again, there was no me, no world, no, all that was there was the divine is, this light, light beyond lights, light beyond lights, overwhelming, okay? Now, when I came back out of this, talked to my guru, told him what had happened. He said, well, are you convinced of this? I said, no, you're not convinced of it, because to be convinced of something, there has to be doubt. In this, there is no doubt. There is no doubt. It's more real than anything one feels in the physical plane. Okay? There is no doubt. You don't see it, you don't, not with your physical eyes. It's beyond your senses. But all of a sudden, there's a shift in consciousness. This is known at the heart level with every fiber of the being. This is the divine is. And I've never been bored and I've never died. You are part and parcel of this divine is. This is what gives life, breath. Okay? It's the life of all life and the death of all death when one encounters, okay? And that ego self dismantles. It implodes as if it never was, okay? All of a sudden, you are no longer that person. You have never truly been that person. It was like a play. It was like that's why Buddha said, I've woke up. It's like being in a dream state. You wake up from it. And you're in the reality of what is prior to everything coming into being. you are in that divine is. And you know this divine is runs like a thread through everything that you see in existence. And they have the illustration, which is quite right, that the divine is like the string and the experiences are like the pearls on the string. And though the pearls sit on the string is never really touched by the pearls' encounters. Whatever the pearls have gone through, they go through. And that divine is, that string is always perpetually the same, unchanging. And one knows that. And so when one is within that divine is, and you no longer exist, you've entered the great zero. People start on the path, I think a lot of times because they want to become something. You don't become something. Enlightenment is not that you're gaining something. The ego's gaining something, a feather in its cap. You find out you're nothing. You're the big zero. Okay? The zero. Okay? And you see the divine is, though it appears to have nothing, I call it the pregnant void, because it's not devoid with nothing. It's pregnant with everything that will ever come into existence. Okay? Pregnant with everything. Okay? And so there is an immediate shift of consciousness. Okay? Now, if you're in a Kundalini path, when you start getting close to that ego death time, you'll start having buildings imploding, mountains imploding. You'll see all these heavy structures starting to disintegrate. There are some, some hallmarks along the way that as a guru, as a teacher, we watch for, okay? And we can tell where people are in the process by what dreams they're having, okay? Dreams of cars, vehicles represent the physical form. You'll have dreams of fires, snakes, those types of things when it has to do with Kundalini energy. Those are just things that spontaneously emerge, or when they go through having lucid dream states. Okay? So these are all things that are encountered along the way that we speak of. Okay? So when everything deconstructs, now if one has been in a nirvikalpa, okay, a nirvikalpa samadhi, and they come out of it, and they start to rationalize, they reroute, and ego comes back. They've had an experience, but it's not complete. Okay? When the experience is complete, one comes out of that, and the ego does not reroute. The mind goes into absolute stillness, quiet. There are no longer any running thoughts. That's ended. And one is just at that point fully aware of the divine is in every moment. In the midst of action is inaction. In the midst of sound is silence. One is not in that divisionary state any longer. One is aware of those at all time. Okay? So it's a totally different state of consciousness. When one comes out of it, it's very difficult. At that time when I came out of it, and it takes maybe 10 years to settle, but everything is overwhelming at that point because you are part and parcel of all. And I mean, this is a bigger state that when one goes through the heart opening and you see you are connected to everything. Okay, it's different. Sounds the same. The words are basically the same, but it's a totally different experience. Okay. So, when one comes out of it, you cannot say I, because it's no longer there. Okay? It's not that one is trying to put on airs or something, but coming out of it would say this one, because there are no really words for it. But there was no feeling of being an I, a separation at all that doesn't exist any longer. So, it took me about, 5, 6 years at least to be able to see me, to say I, to reclaim that type of speech to talk to people. Because really, if it's not there, it's not there. It's very difficult to walk around and say me and I and this, and because, or having talking with people, they want to have these conversations of, and they're meaningless to you at that point. You have to relearn to do conversation with people on the level of the dualistic realm of things that people want to talk about. Because at that point you have no interest. There's no interest any longer in that. Okay? One's no longer caught up in this soap opera story that was found to be the illusion of the moment. Okay, and that's gone. That it no longer exists. Okay? So that's what happens with the ego death. Okay, this ideation of being something separate, and that this body and this form is transient and it's going to be here, and then there's that fear of death and fear of that. All of that stuff goes. It goes. Okay? Yes, we're in this thing, but absolutely it's just a vehicle. It's a mode of expression for this plane of existence, and it's going to change. But who and what one is at the center of being is eternal. That's not going to go anywhere. Okay? So again, there's a total shift of consciousness, a total shift. All the baggage one had, the fears, the doubts, the dramas, they're gone immediately. Okay? Immediately those things are gone, as if they never existed. Okay? Now, when I came through it, I had very severe PTSD, really severe. And you have to go and talk to the psychiatrist, etc. And when I came out, they did the exam, and I said, no, I'm not having flashbacks. I'm not having any of those things anymore. I'm happy. I'm complete. I'm whole. And they were like, oh my God. It's so bad, it's so repressed, she can't even look at it. It's like, I'm laughing at him. I'm saying, leave me where I'm at, So I'm telling them the truth, It's gone. It doesn't exist. Okay? And they're just like freaking out at that. Oh, this can't be. You can't, well, okay, have it your way. Oh, my goodness. So, yeah, realization is very similar in one way to those that have a near-death experience, but it's more complete. It's more complete than a near-death experience. Okay? They go part of the way. They haven't gone the whole of the way to the full divine is. They have seen a projection. Okay, when they go through the near-death experience, they're talking to the projection. Okay, so they're still within the realm of duality, but it's a much thinner veil. Much closer to Advaita, to the truth of it all, than they are when they are embodied here, okay? So they know at that point that it's eternal. There's nothing to fear in death, that they're going to go forward, okay? So realization is a deeper experience of that changes the whole of consciousness, okay? Not that people that have near-death experience aren't changed. Oh, absolutely, they are 100% changed. They know that there is just the divine love and that they're going to go forward. There's nothing to fear in death, okay? But they haven't had that whole deconstruction of ego, and that's the difference, okay? They are much more free in themselves than they were before they had the ego death. I mean, sorry, they're much more free in themselves than they were before they had the near-death experience. But when you go through the ego death, you go to the absolute primary part of existence, okay? And then everything is just, it's known. It's known. It's not something that you've studied, you know about. It is known. 100%. Okay? So there's a vast difference in trying to study about spiritual things, and you've gotten book knowledge. Okay? You can recite it, you can, but when you have the actual definite, and it's your reality, that's on a whole different playing field, okay? When it's reality to you, it's not a concept, not an idea, not something that you accept by faith, okay? I'm holding to, I don't know that it's true, but I want to believe it's true, and I'm hanging to it, okay? I'm convincing myself of it. I'm going to try to convince myself. No, there's no convincing. It is. 100% you know the truth of it. 100% because you're living it. Okay? It's one's life at that point. Now the other night I was listening a bit to the, what is it called? The Atlantis thing, children of the law of one, children of the law of one. And this is information from the Atlantis thing. Now I remember having memory of Atlantis being in the room doing the healing work with the large crystal, and you have the sound and the color that are matching, and they just impart this into the form, into the physicality of form, mind, body, spirit, okay? The vibrations of it are changing mind, body, spirit. I had remembrances of that. And then when I heard the things or talks, listened to a couple of them last evening, that information is known, okay? It's known at a heart and an absolute level, okay? It wasn't saying anything that wasn't already reality here, okay? But it's very good for people that are on the path going forward, the children of the law of one, give talks that would be very interesting to most people that are on a spiritual path, or the raw law of one collective. I just ordered the books, but it's going to be the same thing that is inherent here. When you go to realization, it's inherent. All of that stuff, it's like it's downloaded immediately, like boom. And you go back and you read these texts, whereas if I would have read them 1 hour before realization took place, I would have been trying to figure them out logically. When the ego deconstructs, and one goes through the ego death, and what remains is that particle, the divine is, pregnant void. The consciousness has changed, shifted. All the illusion and delusion have been swept away. They're gone. Okay? Totally gone. One goes from like that illustration of being a raindrop into the ocean, and one becomes the ocean. Okay? This is the limitation. This is the whole enchilada. So you've gone from this little bitty thing to the whole enchilada. Okay? So then when you come out of it, read it and you go, yes, 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 because you know this is truth. You know 100% it's truth. Whereas before you would have been trying to logically hold to it, figure it out, you know. But once it's happened, you read it and it's like, yes, 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 yes. Okay? Same thing when I hear these ones of either the raw law of one or the children of the law of one. It's the same thing that you know. It's no mystery here anymore. It just is. Okay? It simply is. There's nothing to doubt. There's nothing to, and it's so, when you go through I'll tell you, the funny thing that happens with it is, well, I don't know, funny, because it's like hitting a brick wall. Okay? You sit down, all of a sudden you go through the death, and the only thing that's existing is the divine is at that point. And it is so, you're breathing it, you are it. And so you know why karma is and why it has to exist, because of the way the divine is. Nothing can be out of alignment. It will try to pull it back into alignment. So you know 100% the reality of karma and why it has to be. Okay? So all of these things immediately are known. They're not surmised. It's not something, you know 100% with every fiber of your being why it is. And it has to be. So when you come out of that, and all of a sudden the world is coming back into your physical eyes, are starting to see the duality again, the realm of duality. Though your eyes are seeing the realm of duality, your consciousness is forever within that the divine is, the one, the singular, the zero, the zero. I don't say the one because the one can be subdivided, but this can never be really subdivided. It's the illusion of subdivision, okay? So you are forever in that consciousness, okay? And you come out and you know that your lifetimes, a multitude of lifetimes have been for the search, the spiritual search. Many lifetimes, all of these lifetimes have been geared towards going towards the light, the search. And now, you've come to the end. It's like hitting a brick wall. It's like you come out and like, boom, well, now what? My life has no purpose anymore. There's no search. It's ended. Okay. What you striven for and you strived for lifetime after lifetime after lifetime has come to completion. Well, now what? At first it's a bit frightening because, it is like hitting a brick wall. But then you come out of it and you start, whereas all you wanted to do was get out of life before. And literally when I was going through the dark night of soul, I was praying for death. I mean, literally praying for death. Okay? I can't take another second, and you just have to keep going through and just pray for the strength for another second, another second, another second, and it is so painful. Okay? Well, now when you come out of it, you find out there was nothing to be free of except for your own mind and your own illusions that you had held as truth, which really were not truth. Okay? They're only so-called truth as long as you are feeding it. You have to feed it for it to exist. It has no power on its own. It cannot jump out of your mind and have its own life out here. Your mind is what gives it life. You are the creator of that. Okay? And we create for ourselves a world of hurt for quite some time. Okay? Fears, illusions, and those types of things. And that's why the spiritual path, the further you go, the more difficult it becomes, because you are encountering a deeper subject matter to look at, to question, to really get to the seed of it. You peel away the layers until you get the seed of it, okay? Till you get to the knot and you cut it, okay? So all of these things that we have are trials, tribulations of past things that have happened, and we continue to run those and feed those fears, feed those, all of that other stuff which was negative. We are the ones that are fueling it. This is not to say events don't happen, okay? But they're past. So if you're rerunning it, you are victimizing yourself. We victimize ourselves over and over and over again. Wanting to change the past tapes, but you can't change the past tapes by playing it over and over and over again. It's not going to come to a different ending, okay? Until you really get to the heart of it and you cut that knot, okay? And we see that whatever has happened to the form, but truly who and what we are cannot be touched, okay? So when one comes to the point, it is freeing, it is liberating. But we have to do the journey. We have to be willing to walk through those doors. We have to be willing to encounter that pain, okay? And to question it and look at it fully, okay? And we will have these aha moments, when we are doing that walk, okay? So one thing that happens, one develops compassion along the way. We see that, and I can only speak from the journey here. I can't speak to someone else's journey. I speak to the journey that was here. And it was seeing that the ones that had hurt me had hurt, that I had taken this on, that these were things that were in their own lives that they haven't dealt with, that they projected out, and then I accepted, okay, and fed and ruminated on and held in my consciousness, okay, to my own undoing. And I saw that ones that had perpetrated some of these things, they were in a hell realm. They were in a hell realm, and they were compelled to do some of these things to hurt people, okay? And when I saw that they were in a hell realm, I developed compassion. And when I developed compassion, that freed me up. I said, they are in a hell realm, but I don't have to be. I don't have to hold on to this. I don't have to, feed this. And when I was able to see that and develop compassion, then it was freeing. It was starting the process of being freed. Okay. And the ego death that one goes through It's like Christ was saying, you need to be born of the water and the Spirit. Well, the ego death is being born of the Spirit. Like the Bible says, no one sees the face of the Father and lives. When there was the one where the guy is in the rocks, in the cliff, and God is passing by, and he hid in the cliff, okay? Because he knew it's the death. If you see the face of the Father, which Father has no physical face, don't think it's like that. But if you see what the divine is, actually is, what they will call Yahweh or YH, Yad He Vod He, Yod He, Yad He Vod He. When you see what that is, the reality of it, God, if you want to say God, and this is another conundrum. For God to exist, there has to be something other than to make it God, but there is nothing other than. So if you're in duality, you could say God is all that exists, but if you're in that divine is, there's nothing else other than. That's why Buddha never said there's God or not God, because it's that conundrum. It's that conundrum. Okay? That's why you don't speak. They say those that speak do not know, and those that know do not speak. Why is that? Because God is beyond words. God is not duality. When you are speaking, it is duality. Okay? When you are speaking, words are duality. Words are creation. Words are bringing into that something, a new vibration, okay, of some sort of a separation. Okay? So all of these things come in and you know it. You know the vibration. It's like if I'm playing music and it affects some people because it's coming from that stillness. That vibration is inherent in the music I do. So people feel that. If my students come into my auric field, their mind stills for that time. It's just a natural thing that takes place. Okay? So anyway, I'm going to leave this here, but that's what it's like to go through the ego death. It's, you know, like I say, I had one student that didn't make it. Okay? It's difficult. Like I said, in my last lifetime, I didn't make it through. I went crazy because the things you challenge at the very end of it are the most difficult. Okay? And if you were challenged something on an etheric field and it becomes realistic, like I was doing the Chod ceremony back then, it became realistic and the things were feeding on my flesh and tearing it, I lost my mind because I could not get beyond that thing that it was not real, that it was illusion. Okay? It was a construct of illusion. Okay? So you may not make it this time, but the next life you have another chance at it. And the next lifetime, rather than being so etheric, it will become something to test yourself with that becomes more embodied. Okay? So it's a little, well, I don't know if I want to say easier. It's a different level. But eventually, if you are seeking the light, you are seeking the divine is, it will happen. Okay, those doors will open. It's just, it's like Ramana said. Somebody said, can you give me realization? I said, well, I can give it, but can you take it? I can give you the doorways to it, but you have to walk through it yourself, by yourself. Can you take it? Can you really lay down your life? Lay down the ego. Lay down who and what you think you are. Okay? Can you do it? Okay? if you can do it, and you can't cheat, you can't cheat God, you can't cheat the universe, you can cheat yourself, but it has to be full on, total, 100% surrender with every fiber of your being willing to let that go, because you want the light, you want to know God. That is more important than this life you are living. Okay? More important than this physical life you have been living. You have to want it more than that. You have to want it more than your next breath of air. Okay? And so that's it. But what remains, if you can go through that, if you can give that up, okay, what remains is liberation, moksha, nibbana, nirvana, the play of God. What remains is the play, okay, where there was suffering for so many years of life. If you can come to that point and give that up, what remains is the play of God. You are in with the universe. You are in the flow with the universe. And you know that this is transient, okay? And so you enjoy it for what it is. Okay, so I hope that's answered your question. Let's start this week. I never know what's going to come out, from the universe to your ears. Okay, so much love and light. Thank you for your question, and I'll see you online.